Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining Crankwheel's first in a series of 3 free webinars on transitioning from field sales to inside sales. And this one is about the tools you need for the different types of meetings, and we'll give some brief demos about each type of tool. Now, I see we have a bunch of folks attending, over 30 people connected so far. And I'll just dive right in, and anyone that's a couple of minutes late won't have missed too much. So we'll just start right away. So to introduce myself, my name is Joey Sigurdsson. I am the founder and CEO of Crankwheel, and we create a specialized screen sharing solution for sales teams, in particular for telesales. And I see there's a bunch of folks saying hi on chat, so I'm just going to say hi as well. And these are peculiar times, and so I'm coming to you from my home office. I see some requests for waiting a couple of minutes. I'll do so. While we wait, let me just say I hope all of you are safe and healthy, staying safe from the pandemic that is sweeping the globe. I'm here in my home office. I know it's a little bit messy, so don't hold that against me. But at least the internet connection is good, and we have the internet and all this amazing technology to help us out. So, Zoran, you said that more would join. Do you think they are here already, or shall we wait another minute or two? There is a recording that's going on, and it will be sent to everyone. So anyone who misses, the first couple of minutes can always revisit later on. Thank you. So we will start. Okay. So, this part, as I said, it's about going from field sales to inside sales. It's a transition that I think a lot of people are making these days. We've had several customers of ours who've been moving hundreds of field sales agents onto the Crankwheel platform. So that's sort of where the idea for this course came from, that we saw that there's probably a need for training. And in this part of the webinar series, we'll talk about the types of different online remote presentations you can do for sales, and different ideal tools or recommended tools that we've used or that I've used for each type of those presentations. Okay, and the other 2 parts of the webinar series, the first is happening this Thursday. That's where we're going to cover best practices when you are doing product demonstrations remotely, so online. And next Monday, we will cover best practices when doing presentations remotely. And at each webinar, there will be some Q&A time at the end. And I'm hoping to take up about 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes, going through my presentation, showing you some demos of the different tools you can use. And then we'll spend 10 to 15 minutes taking Q&A. And of course, feel free to drop off at any time. If you are strapped for time, you can always watch the recording afterwards. But I really do hope that you have a little bit of time, at least at the start of the Q&A, to put your questions into the chat box in the webinar tool. And even if you've dropped off, I will answer as many questions as I can from the chat, and you can always review the recording afterwards. All right, so let's dive in a little bit further. So what are my assumptions about you? So I'm assuming that you've probably been in field sales. At least that's who this webinar series is for. And you're transitioning to inside sales now because of COVID-19 sweeping the globe. And my assumption is that you're good on the phone. You're used to selling on the phone, although your primary goal with the phone until now has been to book a face-to-face meeting. So you can be persuasive on the phone, but you might not be used to doing presentations or product demos or pitches on the phone. So that's a little bit of a change. And to do presentations or product demos, you need more tools. And your goal now is to close sales without ever meeting face to face, at least until we're all through this thing. So that's sort of my assumption. But it's going to be useful for anyone who is doing selling over the phone, inside sales, telesales, whatever it is. Okay. So I want to talk about a few different types of situations where you can use presentation tools in a remote setting. And there are two main categories. The first type of presentation is where you've got, it's the impromptu presentation. It isn't scheduled in advance. So you've got your prospect in a phone call. And this is the type of phone call where you would typically be trying to book a face-to-face meeting, right? But now let's say that they are very interested. And so in this type of presentation, using the correct tools, you can go from phone call to phone call plus screen sharing and actually try to just close them on the first call. It depends on your industry, but in a lot of industries, you might have, small business owners, that kind of thing, who you're reaching on the phone. They're actually quite hard to reach on the phone, so it's actually really beneficial to try to go straight for the close, even in the first call. Depends on the transaction size, of course, and a lot of other things. But a lot of times with an impromptu presentation right there in the first or second phone call, you can sometimes avoid having a scheduled meeting at all. So that's category one. But if you're in a phone call with someone, they're not that interested right away, or they don't have time for a presentation right now, that's when you try to book a meeting. Or if there are multiple stakeholders, you book a meeting with, you get that person to help you book a meeting with the multiple stakeholders. So that is the other category, the scheduled presentation. But there are actually different types of scheduled presentation, and I actually want to recommend a few different tools for each one. You might be giving a big webinar like this webinar right now. Now, I could have done this webinar through Crankwheel. It would have been okay, but Demio, which we're using, is actually the best tool that I've used for webinars. I won't spend a lot of time looking at, well, we'll see. We'll see how much time we have. But Demio, you're getting the viewer-facing experience of that, so you're getting an idea of how it works. Another type of scheduled meeting you might have is where you have a lot of stakeholders, let's say at a big enterprise, and you need them all to be in a meeting together. Ideally, you want to have their, video of their faces, and sort of to be able to gauge their reactions and everything. There's a tool that I would recommend for that. There's another tool for slightly smaller meetings where you still have a few stakeholders and you want to get them all on a video call. And then the final category, the final type of scheduled presentation would be a one-on-one. So we'll talk about all of those types. So let's look at sort of just an overview of the tools that I would recommend for the different types of presentation. So if it's either an impromptu presentation or a scheduled meeting that is a one-on-one discussion, just two people talking, you and the prospect, I would recommend Crankwheel. I mean, it's our own tool, but it is also uniquely created for this use case. I don't really know about a lot of tools where you could use instead, or at least Crankwheel is going to be the one that works almost all of the time. Where you have several stakeholders that you want in a video call, I would recommend Whereby or Google Hangouts, and we'll take a look at those two. You could also use the same tool that I recommend for many stakeholders. It's called Zoom, and a lot of people know that one already. It's particularly effective when you have a lot of video streams. There's no other tool that we've used that handles, really multiple viewers. And these days, everybody's working from home. So you might have multiple viewers coming in from, or multiple participants coming in from really, multiple locations rather than a couple of clusters in a meeting room, in a couple of different meeting rooms somewhere. And then, as I said, for webinars, I recommend Demio. And if we have time, we'll take a brief look at that as well. Okay, so let's actually walk through these in reverse order. So for webinars, my recommendation is Demio. There are a few reasons for that. One, it's fully browser-based. It doesn't require a plugin download or anything like that for the viewers, which is really nice, although they do need to be on a fairly modern browser. So you're not going to have viewers joining Demio from an Internet Explorer or something like that. But for most viewers, it'll be okay. They will join the webinar a few minutes before it starts. If they have an old browser, they'll be warned that they need a different browser, and maybe they have time to get that. It also does a lot of management really nicely around, Demio. Oh, did you lose my audio? Let me just check that briefly. No, it looks like audio on my end at least is okay. It should be at least okay in the recording for anyone who's not hearing it right now. Thank you for the confirmation. Yeah, so a little bit more on Demio. It does really nicely with the chat room that you're all experiencing. And you can also it records every webinar, and you can run recorded webinars as sort of an automated webinar, and we'll probably do that for this series, run it on an automated basis over the next few weeks for anyone who might benefit from a rerun. And so, yeah, so it's a nice tool. It creates the registration pages and everything for you. So quite a nice tool for this. I won't spend a lot of time demonstrating it because you are all experiencing it already. So the next case to cover is Zoom. I actually want to switch to a brief demo of Zoom here. So let me just first say, sorry about that. Let me just first say, you can download Zoom, and actually all of the tools that have been mentioned here, except for Demio, have a free version, and Demio has a free trial to try. So all of these tools have a free version, including Zoom. So you can download Zoom at zoom.us. Okay, I guess Zoom is having some bad days here. There it is. So you can download it here. You sign up; it's free to get it. And once you have it, you download a program. And on the Mac, it's called Zoom.us. It's opening that to show you what it looks like. This is what it looks like. Now, the easiest way to use it is to always go here and use your personal meeting ID. That's the simplest way to use it. You can create. Oh, sorry, folks. I forgot to screen share. Thank you for that in the chat. Okay, so now you should be seeing my screen share. All right, sorry about that. So this is the Zoom website, zoom.us. You sign up here. They have you download this client, and the simplest way to use it is to always use your personal meeting ID. That's what I usually do. You can copy an invitation, paste it into like a calendar invite. Here's what it looks like. It's really the only important thing is this link. So you can also just take that link, send it to someone. They'll be able to join your personal meeting room. If you want to get fancy, you can create like new meetings or schedule meetings in the future. But at least in the free version, it is simplest if you always use the personal meeting ID. So why don't we just, I'm going to copy the link that a different viewer would use, and I will start the meeting just to sort of show you what it looks like. And you can, join with computer audio is the typical thing, and I'm going to just do that. You can start your video. So, hello, video. And then for anybody who's joining using your link, the experience looks something like this. So they would paste in the link you sent them in a meeting invitation. If they already have the Zoom client, they can just click here, open zoom.us. Otherwise, they need to download and run the client. They don't need to register, so it's reasonably straightforward. It's not the simplest process because you do need to download their client, at least for a good experience with multiple video, viewers and stakeholders. But then they would just open zoom.us and it'll launch the program and get them straight into the session. You can do things like see who's participating, just me for now. You can share your screen, you can chat, you can record meetings. It's pretty much, what we would call I would call a kitchen sink type of tool. It's got everything you might need for a web conference, with the main downside just being that that participants need to download the Zoom client. But it is a reasonably smooth experience. Okay, so just to talk about that slightly more, their free version lets you do as many meetings as you want. Do as many meetings as you want, and they can be as long as you want, as long as they're one-on-one meetings. which again, as I said, that's not really the use case we recommend it for. We recommend it for meetings with multiple people, but you can do up to 40 minutes per meeting when you have multiple people in the meeting, and that's still on their free plan. And I see that Steven Stein has mentioned in the chat that not all functions on Zoom are available if you're running on a Chromebook. So that's a good point. Thank you, Steven. All right. So if you have somewhat smaller meetings, let's say three, yourself plus 2 or 3 people on the other end, it can be simpler to use a browser-based web conferencing tool. And the two that I recommend are Whereby and Google Hangouts. And I'll show you Whereby first. This used to be called appear.in, and I think they had some legal dispute that forced them to change the name. And again, I'm using the free plan. Free plan is limited to 4 people in a conference, I believe. And you can sign up, log in using your Google account or create an account. And then you can create a personal room. So I might create something like whereby.com/crankwheel. Okay, I've created my room. I can go to the room. And so allow access to camera and microphone, and I'm going to join the meeting. And you see that there's nobody else in here at the moment, so let's pretend to join as another viewer. And all they need is just the name of the room. So whereby.com/crankwheel. That's the room I created for Crankwheel, and they can try to join that way. So now I'm joined twice. So that's pretty simple, right? That's any modern browser, essentially the same set of browsers that Demio would support. So, not Internet Explorer 11, maybe not Microsoft Edge, although the latest version of Edge is getting a lot better. It's based on Chromium, so same thing as Google Chrome, really. But, Chrome or Firefox, definitely be able to use Whereby. It gets a little bit heavy when you have 3, 4, 5 users all in there, but the simplicity of being able to just have a very simple URL and join by browser, that's pretty nice. The other one, Google Hangouts, you can use it directly by visiting hangouts.google.com, and it'll let you start a video call, etc. But really, the default way of using it, I would say, is if you use Google Calendar, then you can simply, create a meeting. Create a meeting. So I'm going to do test, and that's happening now. So let's go to more options. And you'll see that you can add conferencing here, Hangouts Meet. And that's all you need to do. You send this to some guests, you save it, they get a meeting invitation, and this link to the Google Hangouts is included in the calendar invite. So I'm not going to demonstrate it at all. It's a pretty similar experience to Whereby. It's just that, with the Google Calendar integration, it's pretty simple to set it up as just part of a calendar invitation that you're sending to folks anyway. I would say for sales purposes, Whereby can be simpler. Google Hangouts, if you are not logged into your Google account, it can be a little bit of a confusing experience to join. It might prompt you to create an account or sign in with your Google account, that kind of thing. So if you want a simpler video experience for a sales call, personally, I would probably go with Whereby, but try them both out by all means. Okay, how are we on time? Okay, so we're almost up on the time that I promised you, 20 minutes to give the demonstrations. So for one-on-one or impromptu calls, that's what Crankwheel is for. That's my company's product. So we'll just take a couple of minutes to look at some basic cases for that. So Crankwheel is a browser extension. You can download it at crankwheel.com. There's a free plan, just like with all the other solutions that I mentioned. You can just sign up here, give your email address. It'll guide you through the process, and you'll end up with a button like this in your browser, and you'll be able to screen share here. Now, the magic with Crankwheel is it never requires any download or anything. So whereas with Demio or Whereby or Google Hangouts, your prospect would need to have a modern browser and usually be on a desktop. With Crankwheel, they can use any browser, any device. So you can sort of be guaranteed you could be in the middle of a phone call and you can add a screen share with Crankwheel. And really, screen sharing is all Crankwheel does. It doesn't really, we don't do the phone call for you. So it's intended for use in an existing phone call. So let me just show you a very brief demo of how simple that can be. Let's say I want to share my full screen. Actually, let's share the other screen or it'll get confusing. Okay, and now let's say my prospect is on their mobile phone. I can send them a text message just by sending to their phone number. And actually, let's here it is. So there's my mobile phone right now. Just got a text message here. I'm going to open that. So that's the message that was sent by Crankwheel. This is the default template. You can actually control the text that goes here. You can also put your own company's branding here, although that doesn't work in all countries, but a lot of countries, especially in Europe, it works. So I'm going to click the link in there to join the screen sharing session. And what you tell your prospect is, oh, I just sent you a text message. You might have heard a buzzing in your ear. Could you just click that and just open it in a browser? And I just want to show you something. So you don't want to complicate things when you're already in a phone call with them. You don't want to complicate things by trying to sell them on using some particular screen sharing session. So you don't. You just tell them, could you click this link? I just want to show you something. And what they then realize is that they are in a live screen share with you, and you can show them whatever you need to. Also, because Crankwheel is a sales tool, you can see things like if I, on my mobile here, if I zoom in, pinch to zoom on something, if you look at this part of the screen, we call it the preview pane. It actually shows you where the prospect is looking at any point in time. So you see that they've zoomed in, and you can say, oh, well, if you zoom back out or whatever. Also, if you look at the preview pane again, let's say the prospect is distracted, clicks out of the browser, goes to, I don't know, Facebook. Did you see what happened? There's a viewers window is hidden thing that shows up, and then you can try to grab their attention again, get them back to the meeting. So I will leave it at that, although there are a couple of more things I want to talk about regarding Crankwheel when you are doing either an impromptu or a one-on-one. So for impromptu, if you're already in a phone call and you want to get them into a screen share, just to add that element of being able to pitch them during the screen share, Crankwheel is really the tool that's made for that. But also, if you are doing a one-on-one scheduled call, my recommendation, although you could use a tool like Whereby, my recommendation would be do it with Crankwheel. Do it as a phone call. What does that give you? If you are asking someone to, schedule with you using something like Whereby or Google Hangouts or whatever, if they don't show up, you don't necessarily have a natural way of reaching them urgently to say, hey, maybe you forgot about our meeting. I know we're 5 minutes late because you didn't join, but is it okay if we start now? Whereas, if you schedule it as a phone call, a one-on-one phone call, and then you just add a Crankwheel presentation to that, or you can do a scheduled meeting with Crankwheel. It is a built-in feature. Then you have their phone number. And, as salespeople, I'm sure you all understand the value of having your prospect's phone number and having the prospect have, if they've said, let's talk at, 3 p.m. on Thursday, here's my phone number, or, you scheduled a meeting with them 3 p.m. Thursday, they've made a commitment with you, you can actually call. You call their phone number, whether it's, a gatekeeper or their direct line, you call them and you say, we have a meeting scheduled, can we talk? You leave them a voicemail, you call them again in a few minutes if they didn't respond right away. So you are a lot more likely to actually get through to them if you have their phone number, not just get through to them at the scheduled time, but also in the future if you need to follow up with them. So that's pretty much it. I see there is a question here that I want to answer. So the Crankwheel link, So Alex is asking about how long the Crankwheel link is valid. So it is valid forever, but if they don't join within the session where you created the link, then it'll require an additional authentication step. So there will be this number that they need to tell you before they're able to join your screen share. And this, the reason for this is so that you can send someone, a screen sharing link. And if it's for the current screen sharing session that you just started, then that link is going to work immediately, just as you saw on my phone. There was no authentication. I just sent a text message, clicked the link, it worked right away. But if I had stopped that session and I come back and do another session half an hour later, and somebody with the old link tries to join, they wouldn't be able to join without an authentication step where they have to tell me over the phone, hey, I'm viewer number 72, can you let me in? And you accept them explicitly. So that's the model in Crankwheel, is you're always in your sort of personal meeting room, and any link you've given out in the past, it points to your personal meeting room. But if it's an old link, it'll require authentication. If it's a new link, it won't. So that's sort of the basic model. I see there was a question also from Bernard about Exchange integration. I guess this is in relation to probably Zoom or one of the other tools, and for Microsoft Outlook running on Exchange. So I'm not super familiar with those tools. I do think that probably both Zoom and Hangouts have a plugin for Microsoft Outlook. I'm pretty sure. I don't know about Whereby. And for Crankwheel, if you're doing a scheduled meeting, you can do similar to Zoom, like there's a block of text you can sort of copy, and you can paste that into any calendaring program that you like. So I hope that answers the questions there. Now, before we go to Q&A, just as a reminder, the next webinars in the series, the first one we'll talk about best practices when you are giving a product demonstration in a remote way through a web conference or through a screen share during a phone call. That's happening this Thursday this week at the same time as this one, so Thursday this week. And the next one after that is best practices when you're giving a presentation or some kind of a pitch. So not a product demo, but more about giving a slideshow or that kind of presentation, or using return on investment calculators, which can be a really powerful tool when you're doing a remote presentation. So those are the upcoming webinars. So Thursday at the same time, Monday again at the same time. And now I would like to open it up for Q&A. For any questions for me to answer during the webinar, just paste them into the chat. And if you need to reach us in the future, you can always email support@crankwheel.com, or you can chat with us on our website, crankwheel.com. There's an on-website instant chat box. So let me take a look at the questions. So, all right, so I will start with Stephen's question. Stephen, you use our product from time to time, and you like it. That's great, thank you. Okay, so you are having to go through re-registration. Probably this is the login that we require once every 30 days. You type in your email address to log in. It sends you a PIN number, and you paste that PIN number in. And yeah, if you're finding you do this a lot of times and it is a nuisance for you, you can actually email support@crankwheel.com, and we are happy to. We can extend the time that your login is valid. So if you're okay with a longer login than 30 days, we can make it indefinite, essentially. So as long as you're using the same device, the same Crankwheel extension, then you'll never have to log in again. So you can just email support@crankwheel.com and ask for that. Having it be 30 days is a security precaution that some of our larger customers care very much about, but a lot of our individual customers, they would probably prefer to have it indefinite. So Stephen, yeah, thank you. I see you that hopefully answers your question. Brian, can you do a future date link? Yes, you can. So when you open Crankwheel, there's here schedule a meeting, and let's say Brian Yowie to discuss 2,000 seat license. There's always hoping, right? So I can put in whatever name of the meeting I want. I can create link, and I can also decide whether to include phone conference details or whether I want this to be like a one-on-one. If it's a one-on-one chat, my preference is don't include the details. Just put their phone number in the calendar invite. And then you can copy this text by clicking here. If you want, if it's a multi-person meeting, you can have phone conference details. Those are the phone conference is provided by a partner of ours, and you can see a full list of details about that at this URL that's in the description here. For companies that have their own phone conferencing system already, there is a way to bring your system into Crankwheel, have those two integrate. Our support team is happy to help with that. But yeah, so I would copy this, and I would just paste that whole block of text into a calendar invite. To save time, I'll just skip on that. So that would be the way to get a link for a future session. And when people join using that link, you will see the name of the meeting as, you'll see a number that they're supposed to repeat to you. And you'll also see the name that you gave the meeting as part of the link. Yeah, so one other way that, let's see. So Alex, yes, there will be a recording. Gilsey, explain the lobby. Sure. So Gilsey is my co-founder, and some of you may have spoken to him already. So thank you for that question, Gilsey. So I think that's actually a great point. So I showed you how we would get someone connected if they're on a mobile phone by sending a text message is a very easy way to do it. If they're in front of their computer, you could send them an email, or if you have them on Instant Messenger, you can copy a link to a session and send that. But really, the approach we recommend when it's an ongoing phone call and they say, I'm in front of my computer, is that you ask them to type in a very simple link. So I just started a screen sharing session, and what we're talking about here is this, what we call the public link. So you would ask your viewer to type in that simple link. This link, by the way, can be branded for your company. So this, by default, it would be, if you are Acme Corp, it would be meeting.is/Acme Corp. But if you're Acme Corp and you have acmecorp.com and you want to get one of our more advanced plans, it can be acmecorp.com/meeting, or it can be meeting.acmecorp.com, for example. So the way this works is you'll see that I'm the only person shown here, even though the link is branded for our company. CW is for Crankwheel. So it doesn't show any of our other salespeople or anybody else who might be wanting somebody into a session. This is because at this moment, I am the only person waiting for someone to join a meeting. That's how the public link or reception lobby, we sometimes call it. That's how it works. So you can imagine it as a reception lobby. If you go to a company in person, the only people who are going to be in the reception lobby are people waiting for somebody to join a meeting. So you tell them, okay, click my photo. My name is Yoey. You just remind them in case there might be other people there, by coincidence. And then they see a number that they need to tell you, and you can click on the same number right here to accept them in. And you see that they're coming in through the lobby. So accept, and now they're viewing my screen share. That's the so-called lobby or public link approach. Okay, let's see. Last question maybe. Svet, I've mostly been using Teams for planned meetings and Crankwheel for impromptu ones. Brilliant combo. Love your solution. That's not a question, Svet, but thank you. we appreciate that. So last chance, one more question if anybody has one. If not, I just want to say thank you all so much for joining the webinar today. And as a final reminder, the next session is on Thursday, starting at the same time as today's session started, and the next session after that is next Monday, starting at the same time as today's session started. Zoran, okay, last question. Will we integrate audio in Crankwheel? I think, Zoran and everybody, over the next couple of months, there's a lot of increased demand for Crankwheel. So over the next couple of months, we will primarily be focusing on making sure that we are able to meet that increased demand. We are also making Crankwheel available in more browsers. So right now, as the presenter, you need to use Google Chrome, even though as the viewer, you can use whatever browser, over 99.9% of browsers. So our focus over the next couple of months is scaling up a little bit to make sure that we are always well ahead of the curve in terms of performance and demand for Crankwheel, and also making it available in more browsers. So you can already start using most of our features in Firefox. That's already out. We're going to bring all of the rest of the features to Firefox and to all other modern browsers. So Firefox, Safari, Microsoft Edge, and other browsers like Opera and Vivaldi and more. So that is our focus initially. So we wouldn't be able to get around to audio until a little bit later. There are a lot of questions, requests for it, but it's also the case that we focus very much on our niche, which is you are doing telesales, you're calling people and you want to try to close them in that phone call, or you want to have very easy impromptu conversations with screen sharing. That's the niche we focus most on, and that's why we don't have audio support yet, but it is something that we'd be interested in adding. So I hope that answers the question. Shiloh, hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. There is no time limit on screen shares, and each screen share can have up to 300 viewers. In fact, we can do more if you need. You just need to talk to us to make changes on your account before you try that. So I hope that's been helpful for you, and I hope to see all of you again for the next couple of webinars. I look forward to them, and there will be a recording posted of this one. I believe Demio will send it to you automatically. If not, I'll make sure that you do receive it. So thank you very much. This is Joey from his home office during the times of COVID-19, signing off. Thank you. Bye-bye.